So I was thinking recently hearing that Epstein keeps coming back in the news. The most recent thing was that Dershowitz, as part of his apparent defense, is really kind of trying to deflect, basically say, I don't know, look at all these really powerful people she's accusing. That would be Virginia Roberts, right? The main complainant. Um, so he has access to documents that she submitted of all these people that supposedly raped some of the girls or raped her or were seen on the island, etc. And and so Dershowitz has kind of like been releasing all these names. It just got me thinking about this thing that again, I don't understand the Teflon coating on the Clintons, how this stuff can be so obvious that their level of involvement in these crimes, and they just never suffer the consequence. I want to show one thing, and again, the American media will never show anything like this, but in this case, I'm looking at a from the Daily Mail, right? Again, foreign media might show it, but U.S. media will never show it. That there's this picture. I don't know if you guys have seen it before, with Ghislaine Maxwell at Chelsea Clinton's wedding, and this is well after all the pedophilia charges came out, and she was in that. She got off on basically because they made that ridiculous deal, obviously, but it was well known at that point she was a pedophile and a monster that at the very least procured all these girls, hundreds of girls, for Epstein. But there are specific charges against her also molesting a lot of these girls.
Well, wait a sec, because I mean, in Florida, Epstein was convicted not of pedophilia; he was convicted of
prostitution. So
right, which is another slandering of these girls, basically saying that they were prostitutes when they were not. And just the fact that the whole horrific case is just unbelievable. But I just can't believe that this picture isn't like on American news. Well, I can believe it, but that's the conspiracy part, is how can this picture exist and not be on the news all the time, like that picture of Virginia Roberts and Prince Andrew has been on quite a bit.
Well, for the same reason that Ghislaine Maxwell has been being totally ignored. I mean, like where is she? Like, is she in Paris, or is she where? I mean, it's just.
And that's the conspiracy reel at the heart of this, is that basically the worldwide, the rich and powerful essentially are still operating a pedophilia ring and keeping her hidden away so that she can't divulge what she knows about, the Epstein branch or corner of that horrific world. So it's just amazing to me that this picture wouldn't be out there all the time.
Right.
Well, see, I'd be interested to know how often they put Prince Andrew's connection to this whole thing. Like how much in the Daily Mail they would talk about Prince Andrew,
yes,
rather than Bill Clinton.
And that's the difference between like the UK media, right, which will go after this stuff. And basically, Prince Andrew was basically shamed and dropped out of any kind of official duties as a royal because of this. And Hillary Clinton is still, nominating people for positions in government or whatever, endorsing people. That Engel just recently came out with an endorsement, just have to hide her head in shame at all. So I just don't understand that break, and really the only explanation is some kind of power behind the scenes, whether it is that they hold bribable pictures against people or something behind the scenes. They have this level of power that's just inconceivable.
Well, what happened to all the evidence? I mean, they went through Epstein's townhouse in New York and took away, pallets of boxes and files and everything like that, and black book and everything. Yeah, the FBI raided, right? And so what happened to all all that
Exactly.
stuff. Another angle is, in the Southern District of New York, Berman was just fired by Trump, and he was maybe getting too close to some of the stuff. I mean, I know Trump
Plump is a good
Freudian
name.
slip.
Yeah, it's a good
Trump distanced himself from Epstein, but there may be some connections going back before, before the 20 years ago or whatever, because there's a lot of pictures again of him together with Epstein, I believe. So.
Yeah.
And as far as what people how they would respond, why aren't you seeing this picture more often? I think first of all, the Daily Mail is a quote unquote tabloid, and I think they would just say, well, it's not a reliable source. Maybe it was a doctored photo, whatever. I think it's not considered journalism in the same level. And I'm just saying this is their argument, as New York Times or something.
Right, but I'm giving you one source of this picture.
Right, but I mean, has it been in other more quote unquote reputable sources?
Yeah, again,
as well?
it might be only like in the Sun and the Daily and things like that would be said to be like the National Enquirer here, which has come up with very valid things that the other real media won't dig up.
I mean, the Daily Mail, so it's probably on the level of like Boston Herald. I mean, it's above the National Enquirer, but it's not considered, the Times or something.
So we have to remember that in the phone interview with Whitney Webb that Maria Farmer did, she talked about how the FBI they had known about this for how long, and she had reported this whole thing to the FBI. And like, if I'm not mistaken, it was the thing with her and the thing with her sister. Both things were reported to the FBI. What was it, like 20 years ago?
Yeah.
A ridiculous amount of time before. And even in the Netflix docuseries, they talk about how the FBI, if I'm not mistaken, the police chief in West Palm Beach had actually, because he was starting to see that there was something going on with the district attorney, I believe, that he wasn't pursuing the case, he took it to the FBI, and then the case just disappeared.
And I think
they didn't really do anything about it, and that really does go to show that they both had a lot of power, because the fact that she is still able to be free, who do you know would be able to commit these things, these atrocities, and not be at least brought in for questioning?
And I do want to add, I do want to get in that they said that not only was the FBI, they appeared like non-committal and not interested, they were like aggressive, like to the point of being, she was saying it was like hurtful, the way they were going about like interrogating her. It was like accusational, and it was all sorts of stuff that was basically a really horrific experience that the FBI, subjected her to.
I think it's interesting. I think you have to give Saagar and Jetty of The Hill Rising a lot of credit. I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I think his pushing this story is really to his credit, and he's really done a good job. The last story, it was just a couple of days ago, where he showed that picture of Ehud Barak with a scarf in front of his, this is before COVID, with a scarf covering his face, and the excuse was, well, it was cold. I mean, and it wasn't.
So to clarify, what you're talking about is former Prime Minister of Israel having spent the night at Epstein's place in New York when he said he like barely knew him at that point or something like that.
Right.
And young girls were seen coming and going. While he was there overnight.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's very, very suspicious. And then you get into that whole connection, with foreign intelligence or whatever. And obviously it's all a big soup of conspiracy at this point, but it seems like, the circumstantial evidence seems to point in that direction. And Epstein's death itself too. I mean, it's very suspicious. So, but I think you do have to give Saagar a lot of credit for pushing this story.
And he says he will not drop it. He's vehement about that.
Right, unless he's, but obviously very powerful interests do not want the story see the light of day. You know, they want to keep it covered up.
Right. Yeah, and of course,
let's see if he goes the way of that. What was it, Amy Rohrbach or whatever her name was, the one from ABC, the one who I had it all.
Oh yeah. She literally said in that interview, "I had the Clintons. I had." Yeah, right.
It wasn't an interview.
Let's see
that
how
was
far Saagar can go with it.
That wasn't an interview,
obviously
though.
give credit to him, but
in the interview, oh, you're right. That was the tape that was over.
It was a tape, right?
Oh,
right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They never would have allowed her to put that on the air,
right? Yeah,
and that's why actually she wasn't fired, but it was the person who worked for that network who later went to CBS. She was fired
allegedly, because it's not. It wasn't proven that it was her. A lot of people say that they just used her as a scapegoat.
Okay.
Oh, and I'll also say the fact that Israeli prime minister was there, it kind of is interesting in the light of some conspiracy that are out there that Epstein is really an MI5 spy, and so was Ghislaine Maxwell, and et cetera, because her father had been known to be, and this was all about just getting photographic evidence that can be used for bribing and for manipulating U.S. politicians, essentially, or politicians all around the world. It's kind of interesting that he was.
Well, the thing is that Epstein did. You know, if you were really trying to blackmail people and make a lot of money off this thing, don't you think you would just go after really rich people as opposed to politicians? I mean,
right.
The reason, well,
it's control. It's political control.
It's getting them in a compromising position, and then they can use that for control, right? So who's interested in that? Who try to connect the threads there, but who's interested in that? Foreign governments obviously would be very interested in that.
Right.
And one of the main reasons why people are so suspicious of, they suspect that that Epstein had had become as powerful and as known as he did because of the people that he was, rolling with, and the type of damaging sort of information that he had on people, because it's inexplicable how much money he made and like how he made his money.
Oh yeah, they have no idea. Yeah.
Right. Well,
they have no idea where the money came from. It just was there. Yeah.
And Les Wexner bought him the townhouse in New York, right, for way under market rate.
For $1, wasn't it like $1?
Sold it to him, right? Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of and the documentary. I don't know if Saagar said that or somebody, but basically it's kind of a whitewash. I mean, it deals with it has some of the Maria Farmer.
I said that. He didn't say that.
Well, I think it's somebody else.
They actually had, I think it was the producer, the director. They had her on the other day.
Oh, she was horrible.
See, I didn't get that at all. I thought they had another person put Clinton on the island. They had this other technical guy that was just running around fixing servers or something.
Right.
Saying he saw Clinton on the island. The women were extremely believable and in giving and telling their stories. And they were saying they think girls are dead. They think there were hundreds of girls that were involved that they saw come and go. Where are they? They think a lot of them are dead.
But what about did they talk about the the Israeli Mossad connection, with Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, and I mean, there's did they even broach the subject at all?
I don't believe so. I don't remember that happening.
No. I saw it. No.
Which I mean, it should be mentioned.
It should be mentioned. Yeah.
Just because it's part of the whole story.
It wasn't a complete telling, but to me, the biggest fact, the fact that they went after Clinton, and the fact that it was the women are given such a chance to tell their story, and they're so believable that I thought it was worthwhile to open the door for people being curiosity, and it got huge views. It was like #1. Like miniseries or something. I don't know. It was #1 in some category while it was on or whatever.
I tell you, if some politician wanted to take that up as a topic, running for president, I think people would vote for that, because they're like, fuck this. Like, we got to get the truth out about. People really think there's some kind of cabal, conspiracy, or whatever. And I don't think it's necessarily that type of thing, but obviously there's corruption and a small number of relatively small number of very powerful interests have undue influence. And so, Trump actually ran on that to some degree in
Yeah.
2016. I think somebody ran on, saying I'm gonna expose Epstein or whatever. All these other people, like, they all have ties to Epstein. Trump, Clinton,
Right.
Bush, like, they're
Yep.
all like
Yeah.
connected. So I don't.
So Biden actually doesn't, that I can see. I've actually looked for that, and I can't find any ties with Biden. And Obama stays aloof on all this sexual stuff. I mean, he doesn't see. He kills people in other countries, but he himself doesn't get entangled. Hasn't seemed to ever get entangled in that kind of stuff.
But I wonder if one of the new up and coming younger generation, like you look at like Booker and Bowman and these different people, if they're going to actually start, pushing for some of these, investigations where investigations are due. I mean, come on, it's just like, is it just going to be a Netflix documentary and then we're going to just say that's it, and we're gonna
Yeah, I would. I mean,
stop with that?
I mean, we have, without putting too much on Booker and Bowman's shoulders, we have a lot of hope that they can take care of these other high priorities as well. I mean, abuse
Obviously,
of the poor by the
right.
by the wealthy is what we're talking about in general, right?
I'm just saying the fact that it got so many views on Netflix means that it does resonate with people, and that
Yes.
it's like a hot potato. People don't want to touch it, but it seems like somebody, I could see somebody trying to putting that on their platform or something, and people would respond to that.
It would be interesting to check to see if every time the Hill Rising does a segment on that, to their views go up considerably, because he's had like 5 or 6 different segments on it. Things keep coming up.
Yeah, it's interesting to see where it's going to go.